Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Today we'll be discussing Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 5, text 14. Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya sujati prabhu na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. So Krishna, in the previous verses, he explained how one can become freed from the resultant reactions of one's activities. And in this verse, he explains how the activity itself is generated. Is it generated by the living entity? Is it generated by the material nature? And in either case, or is it generated by the Supreme Lord? So in that case, whose karma it is, who should be held responsible? All these intricate things are explained in this verse. So Krishna says, the translation Prabhupada translates, the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So in the previous verse we discussed about the Navadvare Pure Dehi. The living entity, Dehi, lives in this body of Navadvara, or the city of 9 gates. The body has 9 holes, as we discussed. And the living entity functions through these 9 holes. And here it is said, we can interpret this Prabhu, and Prabhupada did interpret this Prabhu as 2 different ways. One as living entity, or the other interpretation is that of the Supreme Lord. So if you consider the Prabhu usage as living entity, which is what Prabhupada writes in the purport, na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya srujati prabhu. So what Prabhupada writes in the purport is, as long as he is in the city of body, the city of 9 gates, Navadvara, he appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor, na kartrutvam, nor controller of its actions and reactions, na karmani srujati. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. This is what it means by na kartrutvam na karmani prabhu. Even though we are in this body of 9 gates, 9 holes, it is like we cannot control its actions and reactions. So therefore we are not its proprietor. Just like we are being tossed, a person who is placed in this body is considered to be like a person who is thrown in an ocean, and the ocean's waves are tossing him here and there, and he has no control. Does anybody has control over the waves of the ocean? Can he calm them? No. That is why it is said, don't pray for a problem-free life. Pray for a purpose-filled life. The problems are like the waves of the ocean. You have placed yourself in this material world, or you jump into this ocean of this material world, and the waves will be constantly coming. We have no control. We have no control over it. But within what we can live a purpose-filled life, God-conscious life. So, na karma phala samyogam. So, na kartrutvam na karmani. We are not its proprietor, the body's proprietor, nor have control over its actions and reactions. Na karma phala samyogam. He has no connection with the resultant activities of the body. It is all enacted by svabhavastu pravartate, the modes of material nature. The svabhava means the modes of material nature. All this is being done by either nature or Swabhava developed in association of nature. Swabhava means our tendency to act after the association of the modes of material nature. Once we get the tendency, we helplessly act. Like, for example, you get by your activities, by your association, you get the body of a dog. So you have to act like a dog helplessly. Can a dog act like a small human being or a big human being? Doesn't matter. You have to shout like a dog, you bark like a dog, and you have to eat like a dog. In a baby's body, you tend to put everything in the mouth, isn't it? The baby also cries. The baby also does crazy things differently from an adult. So helplessly we are acting based on the body. So these are actions driven by Swabhava. And then there will be reactions for that action. If you put something in your mouth, it will react in some way, isn't it? So Prabhupada says in the purport, somehow the superior nature, the living entity, has been in contact with material nature since time immemorial. The temporary body or material dwelling place which he obtains is the cause of various of activities, varieties of activities and their resultant reactions. Living in such a conditional atmosphere, one suffers the results of the activities of the body by identifying himself in ignorance with the body. It is ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and distress. As soon as the living entity becomes aloof from the activities of the body, he becomes free from the reactions as well. So, as I said, we are thrown into the ocean or we are placed in a body like the dog or a baby or a human or a cat, and we are helplessly acting and we are suffering based on the reactions of these activities. So, this is called conditional atmosphere. And Prabhupada says that one suffers the results of the activities by identifying himself with the body. It's a very important point. Our suffering is because we identify ourselves with the body. Like, for example, you go to a movie and it's a sentimental movie. And then you see your wife is crying or your husband is crying. Sometimes it happens. The husband also cries. So, why they are crying? Nothing wrong in their own family. They don't have any problem. But the lead character, the hero or the heroine, they are undergoing a problem. And they are facing so many difficulties. They're trying to get out of it. And therefore, because we are identifying with them, therefore we cry when they undergo that problem. It's exactly the thing that is happening. Our soul, we are spirit soul, nothing to do with this body. But when the body undergoes troubles, body includes our mind, our mental struggles, or our egoistic troubles, or bodily ailments, difficulties, emotional difficulties, they are all material, bodily troubles. It's got nothing to do with spirit soul. But because we are identifying with the body, we also undergo the same trouble. It is ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of the bodily suffering and distress. So why he has ended in such situation? Karanam guna sangosya, Krishna says later in 13th chapter. To the degree you associate with the modes of nature, gunas, to that degree you will be influenced by it. Once you choose to associate with a particular guna, You have to experience the reaction. Like you choose to associate a set of people who have virus, then the virus will infect you. You have to undergo the reaction, isn't it? Let's say you decide to enter a roller coaster ride. I remember I took my son to a zoo which had a over the top air kind of Zumbo travel. So it will take on top of the zoo. And the foolish design of that box was it just has one bar to hold, and the bar has opening on the bottom, and the kid can easily fall off from that. There's no proper protection. And this boy was quite restless. You know, the boys can be quite active, isn't it? And so we didn't know that. I didn't know that. So I just got into this, and this guy was so restless, and he was trying to poke into everything, explore everything. And I was like so anxious. I was just holding on to him, and the whole ride, I was in trouble. So nervous, so distressed. And you cannot get out. You are right in the middle of the ride on the air. You cannot get out. Once you took the decision to get into the ride, or a big roller coaster, you paid the money, entered the entertainment park. Let me try this. You entered the ride, and they're taking you on top of the, to drop you from somewhere very high. And once they drop you, you don't have any control. You just have to pray. Because you made the choice, and you have to undergo the reaction for that next couple of minutes or however long it may take. You yourself chose the choice. You voluntarily chose, and therefore you have to pay it. You chose to enter. You have to face the consequence. It'll swerve, it'll twirl, it'll move up and down, might throw you off the balance. Similarly, when you associate with the modes of nature, the resultant action will be like that. You have to know you have no control over it. Like drug addiction. Drug addiction, my colleague was saying once, or a smoking addiction. He was so addicted to smoking that he was a chain smoker, and even in between the dinner, he would have to take a break. He would have to go out and smoke a cigarette and come back and finish his dinner. So it's like that. The influence of our association is like that. You attain a swabhava. Swabhavastu pravartate. And the swabhava will make you act. You have no control over it. If you cultivate mode of ignorance, the swabhava is very strong. Like an animal can only bark and do crazy things, ignorant things. You will have very less free will. And Rajoguna also similarly, but little more free will. And Sattva Guna, if your Swabhava is in the Sattva Guna, you will have more free will. Just like a human being who has come to the point of human being, he has more free will than he can think. If a Bhagavad Gita is given to him, he can read, he can think what is the purpose of his life. An animal cannot, it is constricted. They cannot even think properly. A drug addict, a person who is mentally disabled cannot even think properly. Their free will has been curtailed because of the previous association. So, in mode of goodness, the swabhava is contemplation, reflection, responding based on knowledge. Because you cultivated that swabhava, you associated with good people. You can evaluate what is good for me, what is bad for me. And more you associate with goodness, it breeds more goodness. And more you associate with ignorance, it breeds ignorance. Any association will improve exponentially. Every day you add a little bit, and it grows exponentially with the power of compound interest. It's like the rich keeps getting richer, the poor keeps getting poorer. Why? Of course, some of them are condemned because of karma, but because of the choices as well, because they associate with poor people, they get poor financial decisions. They make poor financial decisions, choices, and it keeps going exponentially. Either you become rich or you become poor. So, this is what the verse means when you take the Prabhu as the living entity. But now, the Prabhu also can refer to the Supreme Lord. Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya srujati Prabhu. In the purport, Prabhupada had explained with Prabhu as the living entity. But in the lecture, few lectures and some articles Prabhupada wrote in Back to Godhead, he has referred to this Prabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you take this Prabhu as the Supreme Lord, Master, so what does it mean? Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya srujati Prabhu. So Prabhu, Kṛṣṇa, the Master, now you can ask, if Kṛṣṇa is giving, ultimately God is the sanctioner of everything. Isn't it? Not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. If a devotee suffers also, it is the sanction of the Lord. If a criminal has committed a criminal activity, it is the sanction of the Lord. Does it mean he is creating that good work or bad work of different people? He is letting them do that? No. That is the answer here. Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya shrujati prabhu. The Lord does not create the work for you. Na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. According to the svabhava, you are acting. As I said, if you are ignorant, cultivating association of tamoguna, ignorance, you act ignorantly, you create your own work and create your own result because of that work, and you become entangled. It is not the creation of God. Na kartrutvam na karmani srujati prabhu. So, a person who is criminal, who is condemned, say he comes to the court, he is condemned to death punishment, or he is condemned to be imprisoned. Now he makes an appeal. Oh, the judge has condemned me to be hung or death punishment. He has put me into jail. Because of him, I am suffering. He has created this problem for me. Can he say that? No. The judge is not the enemy of this particular person who is punishing him. And the judge is not a friend of another person who is rewarding him millions of dollars. He is sanctioning the result of the work that you have committed. The judge is simply giving the direction. Oh, you've done this. Now you have to go to the jail. He is not responsible. You are responsible. God is not responsible for my work. Neither He creates my work. It is my nature. It is my characteristic by which I created my work. I created the result and I have to suffer. God simply gives direction because He is the supreme director based on our interest to do a particular activity. But He guides us. This is not good for you. We say, no, I want this. I want to steal. I don't want to surrender. I want to rebel against you. I want to drink. I want to enjoy. I want to abuse my senses. I want to lord over somebody. So the Lord, without Lord, we cannot do anything like this. We cannot even lift our hand without the Lord's sanction. And we rebelled against the Lord. We came, I want to be God. The Lord said, okay, you come to this material world, you try your luck. Please surrender to me. Please surrender to me. The Lord is always guiding, but we are saying, no, I don't want to surrender. I want to commit all these kind of activities. The Lord says, okay, you have to suffer for it. I don't care. And the Lord sanctions, okay, at your own consequence, according to law of nature, law of karma, sometimes you can lord over somebody and sometimes somebody lords over you. If you perform poor activities, you will have bad karma. Somebody else can lord over you. You will have to suffer for the sinful reactions. So all of this happens because of this, because of our own swabhava that we have cultivated, that we have associated. So it's a very intricate philosophy, proper philosophy to be understood only by explained by a Krishna conscious, pure devotee spiritual master. Sometimes, so there was this Swami who is famous Mayavadi Swami in India. So he was giving a lecture, and one gentleman after the lecture he asked a very pertinent question. So he said, see, you are saying Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. So if people are suffering, how people are suffering if it is this material world is mithya. Mithya means it's an illusion. So whether the sufferings of humanity were created by God, is God so cruel that he is creating this leela? Because they say that it is all Lord's leela. Even the ignorance is also the Lord's leela. Then his question was, if it is all leela of the Lord, if it is, then why people are made to suffer? If this illusion is also leela, they say that ultimately God is impersonal, and when he comes to this world as a living entity, that's what they say. The absolute truth has become like all of us in different bodies. We are all God. Ultimately, when we liberate, we go and merge into that God, ultimate impersonal God. Right now, we are in illusion. So, why you are put in illusion? Oh, that is God's Leela. If it is Leela, then why you are made to suffer? Why you are given a body of a dog? Or why you are undergoing so much suffering? Why somebody is born to a rich man, somebody is born to a poor man? Then they should not be held responsible. So, the Mayavadis cannot explain based on their simple answer, simplistic answer, oh, it's all Leela of the Lord. It doesn't make sense. It's not the Leela of the Lord by which we suffer, nor are we gods suffering in this world in illusion. The suffering in this world is purely because of our own association, our own choices, wrong choices we make. And the Lord is merely sanctioning. And as a super soul, He is giving the direction based on our desires. If our desire is to go back to Godhead, the Lord will give direction like that. If my desire is to become a businessman, the Lord will give you direction like that. If my desire is to become the president of a country, the Lord will give you direction like that. How you can do this, do that, do that, do that. It may take many lifetimes even. If my desire is to go to higher planets, Devata, become a Devata, the Lord will guide you. So the best guidance is when you desire to go back to God, to become devotee of the Lord. That is the best guidance you can get from the Lord. The Lord is eager to guide you, but you have to desire. And that desires we develop by association of devotees. By association of materialistic people, we develop bad desires. I want to become rich. I want to buy this car. I want to go to this position. I want to do that. I want to do this. But ultimately, what is the use? At the end of life, you have to die, and mercilessly, you will be taken to another body, bereft of all your positions, all your wealth, all your relations. You don't know where you are going. Is that success of your life? Helplessly being carried to another body, only to suffer another set of birth, death, old age, and disease. So, the right desire is in the association of devotees. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhakti rahaitu ki tvai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I don't want money, na dhanam, na janam. I don't want followers, na sundarim. I don't want beautiful women, kavitam, or I don't want the poetic rituals by which I can be promoted to heavenly planets. I don't want any of these jagadisha kamaye, any of these material desires. But what is my desire? What is that you really want? Janmani janmani ishware. Even if I have to take birth after birth, let bhavatat bhakti, let my bhakti be generated towards your lotus feet. Haituki tvai. Unconditional, uncontaminated, unmotivated, pure bhakti be generated. Let me be engaged in pure devotional service. That's what satisfies me. So I'll stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments? Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.